Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, thank you so much for tuning in. Of course, happy to bring you the live show here on IRN. And on top of that, for everyone out there listening on the podcast or video portion, we appreciate you too. So with that being said, everyone, I hope you're having a great Wednesday and everything is going swimmingly for you. Now, today on the show, we have a very special show planned for you where we have none other than Mr. Scott Schober. He is our cybersecurity expert, and we have a ton of different articles, everything that you need to know about, recent hacks and things like that, to keep you safe. And this is something that, hey, you're really going to want to listen to. So, but before we get started, first things first, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including a link to every article that we do, every video that we show, anything that we mention here today can be found at computeramerica.com. Also, be sure to check out the live video feed. We also have a new review up. We just reviewed the, oh my God, I can't believe it's slipping my head. Oh my God, we have a new review up and it's for the, wow, you know, I'm going to go to Computer America real quick and it should pop right up, but you can see it there. And yeah, we're gonna have to go ahead and mute that. But yeah, we just reviewed a very cool product. Go check it out. I can't believe it's slipping my head. But with that being said, everyone, computeramerica.com, last time I say it. All right, everyone, let's go ahead, get started. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with Scott Schober. And as I said before, resident cybersecurity expert. He is, of course, everything that everything that you know and love about Computer America with cybersecurity. If you need to be safe, he of course works with he's CEO of Berkeley Varitronics, and is of course just the victim of many hacks. And he's written books about it. Just been on the show a number of times. Happy to have him here. And Scott, thank you so much for joining us here on Computer America.
Great to be back on there, Ben. How you doing?
Thank you. And by the way, before I forget, I can't believe that slipped my mind. Glance clock. It's a connected wall clock. So, sorry, new review up. Go check that out. But yeah, so with that being said, Scott, thank you for coming on. And before we get started, how you doing? Everything going well?
Great. Yeah, doing very well. Been very busy. I've been doing a lot of rounds with speaking at different conferences. Sharing a lot of thought about latest breaches and how small business owners can keep safe. And as I mentioned last time, I finished up and just going through the final stages of launching my next book, Cybersecurity is Everybody's Business. So excited to have that coming out later this summer. And it's been a great ride and a lot of things going on.
Perfect. So for anyone out there who maybe this is their first time hearing of you, why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of background and just tell us, why the interest in cybersecurity?
Absolutely. Do a fair amount of security tools, my company, and most of them focusing on wireless threat detection, stopping any type of wireless hacks, when cyber thieves are trying to get into a building or an organization, a government agency, they often will use wireless as their means to get in and hack. So a lot of our tools are coupled with direction-finding antennas used to find unauthorized cell phones, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or other wireless standards. And it's been keeping us really busy, and sales continue to be strong, and I think the threats continue to grow as the hackers are getting more and more creative, and some of their hacks are evolving. So we have to stay one step ahead of it, and that's what we've been doing. And more information can be found on my website is B as in Bravo, V as in Victor, and then systems, spelled out plural.com. And then a lot of the specific cybersecurity research and articles and interviews and so on and so forth is on my website, scottschober.com. And
right, and that's where we're, and of course, links to all that in the show notes. We're looking at scottschober.com right now if you're watching the video portion. But I did want to, kind of hop into today's topics, and I think a good place to start actually is one of these interviews that you recently did. I think that a lot of our audience would be no stranger to Mr. Bill O'Reilly. He, very, very, very famous journalist, and has covered a lot of news over the years. And I really can't think of anyone who would be more, I guess, more qualified to talk about this subject that I believe you were interviewed on. If you could set up this interview, and we're going to have the clip, and hopefully Bill O'Reilly won't kind of block our video. But we're going to play this on silent with closed captioning on in the background. But talk about Bill O'Reilly. I mean, you were invited on, and what was the topic of conversation? What happened?
Yeah, it was actually a really exciting interview, because I too, as in the past, enjoyed watching him on Fox. Obviously has a very strong view and opinion toward a certain side, and that's okay because I go onto all different networks. But he really wanted me on to weigh in from a standpoint of a cybersecurity expert, talking about really the regulation, the proposal that's going on in the United Kingdom regarding social media, fake news, censorship, so on and so forth, and how that may play out, and really what the potential implications could be for here in the United States. And I get into that a little bit, whether or not we're going to see that level of federal oversight that may come into play within the United States in the not-too-distant future, and how tech companies play into this, the Twitters of the world, the YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, so on and so forth. So it was a great discussion. It was nice to chat with him before the interview and after the interview. And I think he's just a down-to-earth. He was a nice guy. Again, everybody doesn't agree with what he perhaps says or his angle, but that's okay. I had a great conversation with him, and I think he's certainly very insightful and brought a lot to the conversation.
Yeah, definitely go check that out. And it's a very, of course, important topic. I can't imagine how you were able to fit that into a 6-minute interview. That's there's certainly a lot to break down there, and I definitely encourage everyone to go out and check that out. We'll link to that in show notes. So, hey, that was just our opening thing. Now, looking through the different topics, you send over a number of different topics, everything from, we're going to talk about the Weather Channel hacking and things like that. But I wanted to actually cover this one because I didn't cover this one. This one didn't come up in any of my readings or anything like that. Looks like this was just yesterday, so that might be why. Anyone who's watching the video portion, I'm not the fittest person, but I will say I have registered at I think it's bodybuilding.com, because they have like workouts that you can download and things like that. It's a great resource and tool for nutrition and exercise and things like that. I did not even hear about bodybuilding.com having a security breach, but I wanted to cover this one first because it affects me. So I'm selfish. Talk about bodybuilding.com and what they may have stolen.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you like myself, I thought it was interesting because lots of people are into health and bodybuilding, but I never associated that to a cyber breach or anything else. And when I saw those headlines, it really caught my eye, and I kind of dug into it and said, hey, here's something a little bit different and interesting. But basically, it appears that hackers were able to get into their site and obtain basic information. I guess that's the good news. Some of the order history for different products and things that they sell, basic phone numbers and addresses, and email addresses and dates of birth, and of course names. So the basic set of personal information. What it does not appear to have happened is having any credit card information compromised or social security numbers or anything like that. So from that standpoint,
That's
I
good.
think it's very important. It's good. So if your information is out there and you were perhaps a customer or somebody that frequented the site, minimal amount of information that got out there. But again, I think it's interesting how now, again, using this selfish plug for my book, cybersecurity is becoming everybody's business. It now affects all of our lives. A couple of years ago, when I was really heavily into this, dealing with breaches and things, most people stared at me with the look of deer in a headlight. What are you talking about? How does this affect me? And to the most part, they were right. And then Target came along, and Home Depot, and many other breaches.
Mm-hmm.
Soon it started to touch each and every one of our lives. And more I'm finding it touches everybody's lives, but in ways we never even would fathom. And this goes to that same point. Here you are as somebody very focused into bodybuilding and have a very specific place that you go, and now your information is compromised. That can be annoying.
It's and really, I mean, just immediately, it kind of raises the question that I guess should have been raised a lot more often, a lot earlier to me. But like when you sign up for, let's say, bodybuilding.com, you have to enter your first name, your last name. Maybe if you receive product from them, of course, they need to like your shipping address. But like if you just create like a starter account, they still need your first, last name, your email, contact information. And part of me wants to think, why do these companies never give you the option to kind of forego that? Obviously, you could input fake information, but you have to put in some kind of information. And in some regards, if you try to falsify it too much, they just won't accept it, and you have to put something else in. Why does every single company, just thinking about all the hacks that you mentioned and dozens upon dozens more that are out there, why does everyone need every bit of data? And every time it's like the same thing kind of gets stolen with names, addresses, date of birth, email address, billing and shipping addresses, phone numbers. I mean, that's a lot of information that everybody asks for. Do you ever feel like we're kind of we're in a mode that we overshare, but it's okay because everyone asks for it, so it's not a bad thing that everyone asks for too much information?
Yeah, I do think too many companies ask for too much information. I understand why. I mean, I'm running a company myself. We approach it a little bit differently. If somebody wants to get information on our product or quotation, for example, we have a very basic form, and the requirement is that we get their email address. We don't require that they give us their full address or their phone number or their title or even the company they work for.
Mm-hmm.
Now, people may frown down upon that and say, geez, that's important information. It certainly is, and salespeople appreciate that because they try to qualify it ahead of time to make sure they steer the customer in the right way and sell them the right thing, so on and so forth. However, if someone goes to our site and they're only putting in the email address, we still will respond to them. Why do these other sites not do it? Is because it's a lot more work to qualify a prospect and try to sell them, and they figure make the job easier. The problem is they don't properly handle the information. And in this case, the question I naturally ask myself is, why would somebody hack bodybuilding.com?
Right.
Well, what are they going to do with the information? Right away, once they get that, they've got about 7 million users approximately and 30 million visitors a month, they claim. So when you have that many users, now you can now dispense phishing attacks. If you're the cyber criminal that got this database, you could send very convincing phishing attacks. And again, I'm not a bodybuilder, but maybe they take some type of enhancing protein or something else about gyms or workouts that somebody's very inclined to click on. And that's what they're doing. They're going to send focused phishing attacks. So you got to be very suspicious of emails if you see anything and not click on those. And more than likely somebody that is on this website or subscribes to it or buys products, they probably already are getting bodybuilding-related emails and blasts and so on and so forth. So your antennas should go up if you are a victim of this, and make sure that you're not clicking on any of these specific phishing attacks. Instead, go to the specific URL and enter that into your browser just to be safe.
Yeah, and of course, on top of this, they will take the leaked information, and I was trying to find an article that I think happened a couple of weeks ago where a gentleman was releasing kind of like waves of hacked user credentials, either passwords or usernames or things like that. And he was talking with a particular news outlet that, saying that here's when I'm going to do it. And he leaked something like 1 billion all on his own that came from like a whole host of companies, like over a dozen companies, every single leak. And I guess when you do that, I found another article concerning about 2.2 billion. It was a collection of 2.2 billion stolen login credentials as well. Do you think that this turns into something where, like, kind of like a sales list or like a mailing list, and they have like all the different logins and passwords, and they kind of just add to it, weed out the old stuff, contribute to these master lists that are out there? And I guess everything that we knew about before and everything that has happened with bodybuilding.com and other companies, this is just getting harder to have good secure passwords if every password we have over the past 6 months, years, whatever, all of them keep getting leaked, and they keep getting into these master lists of passwords. I mean, do you think like it's just another step towards it being really hard to come up with a safe password?
Yeah, I think so. And to your point about when there's a compromise and then it's added or merged to other databases, I think you're dead right. That's really what's happening. Is there's so much data mining going on, and as we learn post-breach, sometimes we've talked about this with Yahoo and many other breaches, it could be a year or 2 years later that we're actually hearing about it, but that data was compromised 2 years ago. So that old data, people move on, change their emails, change their passwords. So a good percentage of it is no good. So when they're merging fresh hacks with old databases and keep cleaning them up and refining them, you get something that's much more valuable and much more usable from the hacker community that they could then go out there and sell it, and you could do a fresh hack that's a combination of fresh context compromised from bodybuilder.com and Equifax and OPM and Home Depot and Target and so on and so forth. When you put that all together, you get a very powerful targeted list, especially if you keep cleaning out the dead stuff as it goes south and people unsubscribe. So I think that's important for people to realize why we as business owners and consumers need to have the ability to change our passwords regularly and make them long passwords that are stronger. And I always encourage people, and we talked about this in the past, what I do often now, I will do a search through companies. I use personally, Cyberlytica has got a great tool for dark web auditing. They go out there and they take your email, they'll look, and then they'll associate your email, if it's on the dark web, with other compromised personal information. So you could see the actual breach. Maybe it's LinkedIn, my email showed up there, my password was compromised, and they tell me when, how many other people were affected, and it tells me, hey, I've got actionable item. I need to go on LinkedIn now and change my password, my login credentials immediately, update my security challenge questions, set two-factor authentication if I'm not. So that's important when you hear about these breaches, not just, another website was compromised, another millions of... Take some action. Hopefully your listeners are doing that and being more proactive so nobody can take it to the next step to where they can actually compromise their identity, hack into their checking account or something else.
It's really easy to just kind of say, like you said, just another hack, but your information could be floating out there and your account could be compromised at any moment. It's just, hey, you may be number 543 million on the list of 800 million. Eventually, someone will get around to trying your credentials, and maybe they'll still be active a year or a couple months, a year later, whenever they finally try to hack your iCloud or your Gmail or whatever. But yeah, as soon as you hear, you should just go ahead, change your password, and try to keep it complex. The last point about this whole article, and then we'll move on to the next topic, Scott. But this quote here, and they are working with leading security experts to address any vulnerabilities and remediate the incident. What do you kind of think happens after a hack like this? Do they try to just clean house and say, okay, how did they get in, or do they bring in a third party company and say, if you were to hack in and steal this kind of information, how would you do it? How do you think bodybuilding.com is working with not law enforcement, but with third party security experts to make sure this doesn't happen again?
It's a great question. I think they are, and they should be, is baselining it and saying, okay, let's go in here and find out when did somebody actually get into our network, how did they infiltrate it, what were the vulnerabilities, what were they able to exploit, are they clearly out of the network now? If so, when did they get out of the network? And now what can we do for this company going forward so it will not happen again? So they'll kind of go down their checklist of all those things. Unfortunately, those type of things don't happen in a day or a week. Often it's measured in months. And when a breach happens, really time is of the essence. You need to move quickly. And in this particular case, in their, I call it the investigative stage, when this third party comes in, working with the local IT team, the chief information security officer, everybody is on hand there. They said investigators discovered the breach was caused by a phishing email that they received July 2018. So here we are almost a year ago that somebody sent a targeted phishing attack, or it could have just been a general one, and one of the employees, because it was from the firm's staff at bodybuilding.com, clicked on it. It sets this whole thing in motion. And now here we are almost a year later. They're in the headlines. They're spending a lot of money. They're doing brand control, damage control, probably going through their networks, educating employees, perhaps doing some level of breach notification, depending upon the level of how much information has been compromised. As they get into this more, they may find, I'm not saying it is, they may find credit cards were compromised. Sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
The initial reporting, hey, here's what we found, they may dig in deeper and say, oh my gosh, somebody masked their disguise and got in the network and got out, but they also compromised the credit cards at the time too. Oh crap. So things like that happen often. So I'm sure more will come out as time goes on with this investigation. Hopefully they'll continue to do a good job and take action as they have and alert their users, which it looks like they have.
Yep, and I think that actually is a pretty good segue into another article that you have here. This one from CNET, great publication, but CNET, if you're listening, stop with the autoplay videos. So other than that, though, CNET is definitely a great resource, and I will say that it kind of segues into what we were just talking about, saying this data breach response, this data breach response tool tells you what to do next, and hey, this sounds very much like, well, now that we've been compromised, well, now what? So what about this article? I mean, this tool, this is like, I've definitely had a lot of companies on the show here that will offer services such as, hey, we will be your response team after you've been hacked, and of course they want to come in before you're hacked as well. But I've never seen like a singular tool for business or personal that can handle the whole thing or let you know what to do. What caught your eye about this? Because this seems like a tall order and a very tailored response. I can't imagine building a tool around such a thing.
Yeah, it is, and I think it was off the norm, which is probably why it caught my eye, because everybody that I've talked to, and it is everything from a small business up to some of these larger corporations, when they're hit really hard, it's panic. It's all hands on deck. It's trying to figure out what the heck happened here, what's exposed, how do we survive this, are we going to go under? Do we have cybersecurity insurance? Are we covered? So heads are spinning when there's a major breach within an organization, big or small. I think what this does, it allows you to get a little bit more granularity and understand some of the specifics. And I think what they're doing specifically is they're building upon past experience, because there's a certain fingerprint or a look or a pattern with all breaches, and a lot of common things that often happen again and again. So they can kind of use historical information and apply that to what actually happened in the particular breach here. And it's really algorithms. And some of this is artificial intelligence, and it's using based upon this, and this in the past, and we see this pattern happening here. It's likely that this is the outcome, which will just give you some forward actionable items. And I think that's really what it is. It shows us they're looking at the future here. And if it gives you some actionable items, if you're a victim or if you're the corporation, it'll allow you to really control the risks and minimize the damage. It's really damage control, and that's really what's happening here with software packages like this. It's great to see it, how well it works. I've personally never used it, but I think it's a good step in the right direction to help companies do things properly going forward.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of wrong things you can do. I mean, just off the top of my head, thinking Uber and actually paying people ransoms to keep it quiet and not not use the information that they stole. Definitely, there are wrong ways to handle it, and there are right ways. The website also mentioned things like Have I Been Pwned and Firefox Monitor, both of which anyone can use. But then, like they said, Breach Clarity lets you know what to do afterwards. So makes perfect sense. Very, very, kind of good to hear. But back to what you were saying about, your book coming out. This is now everyone's business. I think everyone out there, everyone listening, everyone who runs a business, definitely, and everyone who works within a business and has any kind of access to confidential information, it's not just up to IT to figure out how to respond to data breaches. It's now everyone's responsibility to figure out, well, we've been breached. What do I do as the salesperson? Do we let everyone know that, hey, your information was compromised? Is there anything I need to do to change my credentials and things like that? Everyone needs to know how to respond to these things.
Exactly.
So with that being said, and we have time just to kind of introduce our next topic, and then we're going to go to break. We'll come back and we'll kind of continue on. But looking through a bunch of these here, and actually, this one was. I remember reading the comment, and someone made a very funny point that it could have been funnier. The Weather Channel was recently hacked, and I believe it was knocked off the air where they realized that they were compromised, and they just kind of shut everything off, and then they had like some canned shows that they were playing instead of the live coverage that they were doing. Someone joked that they should have messed with the green screen technology and things like that. No, that's not what, at least as far as I know, that's not the kind of system that they hacked. But let's get into this. I did not cover this on the show, so this will be the first time that we're hearing about this. But talk about the Weather Channel. I mean, this is one of the first. I haven't heard of a lot of live television broadcasts being interrupted due to malicious hacking.
No, and I think that's exactly to your point, which kind of makes this a little bit more sensational. If it was a rerun or something else and somebody hacked in, no big deal. Here it is, something that is live, and everybody knows when there's a major storm. I know here in the Northeast, when we've got a snowstorm, we're all glued to the set. Am I going to work tomorrow? Am I going to school? Everybody's glued to the Weather Channel, and that's important for people to see that. So in this case where they're trying to actually hack a live television broadcast channel and knock them off air, that's a concern. And in this particular case, and there's a lot of sketchy details, the FBI, they stated that they were investigating a ransomware attack. Wall Street Journal reported that FBI confirmed a ransomware attack hit the network, but no other details were really disclosed. Some said it was a malicious software attack, but either way, that's a concern, because if there's a live network or any type of channel, could be could it be on the internet, TV channel, radio. Mm-hmm. If hackers are trying to go after them and demand a ransom or threaten them, that could affect news as we know it. That could affect our lives. And to your point, imagine if they messed with it and took it to the next level, not just took them off the air, but imagine if the whatever that's called on the bottom, little ticker tape that scrolls across. Imagine if they said, state of emergency in New York or New Jersey or this or that, how that will affect so many lives to react, even if it's fake. That is a big concern.
It certainly is, and I, just reading the article here, they make a very good point that something that we've noticed, of course, Computer America has been on the radio for 27 years, but about 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, we went from having to go directly into the studio in South Florida and recording our show in the studio, which was always fun, but it's much more convenient to run an ISDN line to your home, and those things cost an arm and a leg, and I think there's only like 7 people who know how to run them nowadays. But then even past ISDN a couple of years ago, we were able to just use a regular, just a regular internet connection to broadcast our program. It seems like the Weather Channel in the article here describes a very similar transition where now internet is how you distribute information. Scott, we have music playing in the background. We'll be right back. Everyone, thank you for tuning into Computer America. We continue on with Scott Schober. Of course, you can check out scottschober.com, more Computer America, more cybersecurity news after this. Everyone, stay tuned.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show, 32 minutes past the hour. Mute switch, it's a fun thing. Everyone, welcome back into the program. So if you missed any part of our discussion so far with Scott Schober, be sure to check out the podcast. It is today's show in its entirety, rebroadcast wherever podcasts are heard. If you missed the live show, or if maybe we spoke too fast, or you wanted to double check something, then hey, just go download the podcast. You'd be good to go. Take us with you on your commute. Now, we continue on. Scott Schober, thank you so much for keeping on with us. And yeah, we were just talking about the Weather Channel, being knocked over, and the point that I was trying to make before the break was that for a radio program and now for television, seems like they've done the exact same thing, mixing different feeds of video from on location, from in the studio. It's just easier. It's just easier, more efficient, more cost efficient. It's much more versatile to, instead of using old technology such as tapes and doing it all in house. No, just connect everything in the cloud or through some other service, and you could do like I said, you could be much more flexible. But then you open yourself up to hacking. You open yourself up to services that can be taken down. And now it looks like live television is, we were worried about like hackable cars and things like that. But I guess now we're also worried about hackable television broadcasts.
Yeah, and I think that is the future, unfortunately. We're going to be seeing things that just because the way media has shifted, as you well pointed out, they're going to be targeted more, especially if certain stations, and we all have our favorite stations maybe to watch news or listen to certain shows or so on and so forth. They may find that they're very targeted if they're too far to the right or too far to the left by certain hacking groups going forward. That's pretty concerning.
Yeah, and the article also mentions that this has happened before, back in 2015, where actually Russian hackers took a French TV network off, and there they actually caused severe damage, which I'm guessing that meant that they deleted things and compromised enough systems that they were able to mess everything up. It's probably I'm sorry, it's probably going to happen more. And I think it also ties back into what we were saying with, with bodybuilding.com and these other huge databases that these hackers are building up, that, all it takes is one person with a weak password that works within the Weather Channel organization that can cause something like this. It's that cascading effect that it just takes one phishing attempt or one piece of malware to get somewhere where it's not supposed to be, and hey, suddenly you can't watch whatever the heck the Weather Channel is putting on, because I know they don't just do local on the 8s anymore. Now they do a bunch of stuff. But
yeah, they got shows and other things now too. So and I think their franchise has really grown, and the number of viewers has grown, and advertisers, and they're the go-to spot now if you really want to get weather.
Yeah, definitely. So and hey, that's getting into a whole other thing where maybe the Weather Channel should just say weather, but everyone likes watching tornado chasers, so it is what it is. So there's that one. Like I said, we had not mentioned that on the air before, so I'm happy that you brought it up, even though it happened just a couple, or like, it seems like weeks ago, but I think it was just last week that it happened.
Last week, I think, yeah.
So very, very interesting. Now, Scott, to keep you on your toes, this is something that we have not sent over to you, but I wanted your reaction in real time. And as always, your opinions and thoughts are your opinion and thoughts, no reflection on Berkeley Varitronics systems or anything like that. But I thought a topic that keeps coming up in the news lately is this idea of facial recognition. And there was a report, I will have to go find it, saying that by 2020 or 2023, I'm trying to remember, every person boarding a domestic flight in America will be subject to facial recognition, as in airports with, of course, there's huge amounts of security at airports. Anyone flying, I think it was anyone flying internationally, or they were on a list, were subject to facial recognition systems. But now it's anyone flying domestically in the United States will be subject to facial recognition systems. And we have another article here that we're going to go ahead and show. San Francisco may be the first city in the country to ban facial recognition. But I wanted your thoughts on the idea that it's no secret that government agencies, three-letter organizations, and more, and law enforcement in general, has been utilizing facial recognition more and more and more. We see it going to the nth degree in places like China and other places that keep dissidents in line and in check. What are your feelings as a cybersecurity professional that we're not having that conversation about should we implement this, and it's now a race to implement it before anyone can even react to it?
Well, I love the technology, be it biometrics, be it facial, and there's dozens of other means. It could be footprints on the bottom of our feet. It could be the blood that we have, how it circulates through our body and our heart beating. Those can all be used as unique authenticators for us. In my opinion, since none of this has really been perfected yet, in other words, there's some kinks in it, there's some mistakes, It should really be just like two-factor authentication. It should be a second-level authenticator. Maybe you're entering a password and then facial recognition, or your thumbprint and then facial recognition. Some combination of it, I think, makes more sense if you're trying to authenticate a person, to get on a computer, to get onto an airplane, log onto your phone, something like that. Anything by itself is going to have mistakes. There's going to be false positives. There's going to be errors. I mean, there was just a story out, I guess, in the past day. There was an 18-year-old from New York, and he was suing Apple for $1 billion, reportedly over a false arrest because he claimed that Apple's face recognition messed up, and it was a combination of it was linked improperly to Apple's stores where there was theft and somebody stole his ID and other things like that. It's a big mishmash story, still trying to get clarity on the whole thing. But what was at the center of it that was concerning, I guess, is really facial recognition led to this false arrest and this impending $1 billion lawsuit up against a big Goliath Apple. Those type of things are going to keep happening, and that's why I think people need to be cautious before implementing technology until it's proven. I often think back and kind of laugh about when biometric systems first came out to recognize your fingerprints, and they were starting to implement them on ATM machines to get cash out, and some savvy cyber thieves realized that there was a sensor in there that measured body temperature to make sure it's the proper temperature for the fingerprint, and that it rolled off round just like your fingerprint, and they decided to heat up little sausages and copy fingerprints on it, and you could roll a sausage with a stolen fingerprint, and you could have full access to somebody's bank account, basically, and steal their money until ATM manufacturers got the wiser, and that changed very quickly. So, again, having it as a second authenticator, brilliant idea. They got to get the kinks out of the technology. It's just not there yet with facial recognition, in my opinion, but it sure has come a long way.
Yeah, and just last year, I recall, speaking of, things that are false positives, last year there was an article about this time talking about the United Kingdom saying that, or at least the chief of police, was not concerned with their 92% false positive rate. That means 92% of the time, the facial recognition system said someone was another person. So that was just last year. We're seeing it more and more. Like I said, domestic flights all over America. If you will be flying domestically or internationally, check with your airline, because this is really up to the airline to be able to, work with boarding passes and things like that. They'll actually auto-enroll you. The one that I saw was, I think, JetBlue auto-enrolled a customer, and they actually got this person's biometric data, her face, I believe, from a third-party company, and they used that to give her like an express boarding pass, using facial recognition. Like, it's to the point where all these companies behind the scenes are sharing your information, and in a lot of ways to make it more convenient. But again, it's that no one's really having that conversation about, do we really care about convenience if we're giving up this much of our identity to these third-party companies?
Yeah, and I think it's very important to add to what you stated. What if the inevitable happens, if and when there's a database that's compromised that is storing your face and my face and your listener's face, and now you're associated to something else where they're using that to commit a crime, but then use your face and slip it in. And how do you prove that? You only have one face. Yeah, sure, you can get plastic surgery or something like that.
That's not feasible, right?
Yeah, my credit card's compromised. I'm calling the issuing bank, and I want a new credit card within a couple days. I'm not going to go run to the plastic surgeon and have a new face put on when my face is compromised and associated to some type of hack or breach. So there's a fine line there. That's why I say, again, having it as a second layer for authentication for something is a lot safer. With the story I brought up before, and I think that was on Engadget, where this teenager was suing Apple, claiming that their facial recognition led to his false arrest, so on and so forth. Ironically, they kind of corrected and provided more detail after the story went out, that Apple commented on it and said that Apple does not use any facial recognition systems in their stores. So there's no way possibly that it could have happened. So sometimes we read the headlines in the news. It could somewhat fool us because most people would naturally think, oh, the facial recognition is tied to the phone. Not necessarily. It's really just a claim that somebody made there, which led to the false. So we have to do our own research. We have to dig and make sure things are really properly fact-checked, because as we talked about before, there's a lot of fake news and a lot of things out there that are very misleading in this world.
Yeah, no, thank you for correcting that. And of course, probably more likely someone monitoring the security system incorrectly identified someone who was walking through the store. So that's much more likely. But yeah, and that's another part of it where we're talking about these technologies, and San Francisco's talking about banning facial recognition. We have Amazon working on their Amazon stores with no employees that will essentially continuously facially recognize you and charge things to your account that you kind of take off the shelf. Companies are working on this kind of thing, but the technology is still a couple years from being fully foolproof and completely implemented. So it's the right time to have the conversation, but at the same time, we're running out of time, I guess is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think with that, I have another one that I might spring on you later, time permitting, but I wanted to get to some more of your topics that you sent over. And actually, cyber attack, obviously the word war in the headline here caught my eye. Wars are bad. Don't like wars. But a cyber attack in Japan could now bring the U.S. into war. What is this? Why is this? I don't want to go to war, Scott. Help.
Yeah, and this is a war with ones and zeros, and that's really what the future of war, I believe, is starting to happen, because you've got obviously the United States and Japan as allies working very closely together, and there's constant attacks, cyber attacks, really originating from China, targeting the U.S., targeting Japan, and now if either country is targeted, they really got to work together jointly, and that's part of the challenge. A lot of these laws that are put out there and partnerships that have been developed through the political regimes over time could, if Japan is basically attacked in a cyber war with China, it automatically pulls the United States in, and I guess that to me is kind of scary how this happens. And again, it's behind computers, behind ones and zeros, behind keyboards, that these type of things are happening. It's a very different war than is fought with guns and bullets. And that's, I think, the future that we have to look forward to, and it's a very concerning future.
There's a sentiment there that I think a lot of parents out there maybe will feel as well. It wasn't too long ago when someone said, why are you getting depressed over what's said about you online? It's just a computer, it doesn't matter. Or it's just the internet, it doesn't matter. There was this implied feeling that if something happened online or digitally or virtually, it wasn't really real enough, I guess. And that has quickly gone away. We now live in a day and age that things that matter online in a lot of ways matter more than things that happen to you in person, because in person, a couple people may see you at your most embarrassing moment, but a picture can travel around the world in minutes online.
Yes.
So I think when it comes to war and, this whole sentiment that cyber warfare that happens between two countries can completely escalate into something much, much more catastrophic than simply, someone crossing a border that they weren't supposed to, as opposed to, hey, they just stole the location of all of our military bases or something like that. Hacking is dangerous, and I guess China, more so than a lot of other countries, know just how powerful seizing information can be.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the nail in the coffin, as it were, when I got to the end of the story, which really gave me a chuckle and made me kind of do a double take, they mentioned that it would appear Japan can use all the help it can get, and this is in regards to the cybersecurity front. Late last year, its former Minister of Cybersecurity admitted to not knowing how to use a computer and being confused as to what USB drives are. He resigned earlier this month, blah, blah, blah. Then you start to ask yourself, if this is the Minister of Cybersecurity for the country, and he doesn't know how to use a computer, doesn't know a USB drive, what in the world is going on? How are they going to stop cyber attacks? That's scary.
And I completely remember when that happened. He was called in front of Japan's essential legislative body, and he couldn't explain anything. Really, obviously, was unqualified for the position. But let's just hope everyone underneath him knew what they were doing, and it was just kind of a chicken with that head situation. That was definitely scary for an entire country's cybersecurity, I guess, kind of czar or leader to be just woefully unqualified. But that was certainly something different. And, there's a whole show that we could probably do on China and the implications of what they're doing with in regards to hacking. I mean, there was an article 2 days ago or 3 days ago about Chinese scientists that were actually infiltrating, getting degrees and going into companies and then sending the information that they were pulling from private companies over to China. Like, they'll go to really, really far lengths to compromise information. And think of it like malware, but instead of a piece of computer code, it's an actual person who goes to school and then enters an organization simply to, steal information. It's interesting what China's doing, and I'm not using interesting in a good way. But okay, there's that article. About 10 more minutes. We have a couple articles that we did not touch on, and I wanted to talk about Facebook. Facebook, for anyone out there, by the way, just to give a plug to our own show, yesterday we did an entire hour about the positives and negatives of social media. Should you be using social media? How should you look at social media? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, that kind of thing. Social media is a touchy subject, and not everyone is really cut out for it. Despite what Facebook wants you to think, sometimes it's okay to disconnect completely for a while. Now, with that being said, social media, Facebook now says its password leak affected millions of Instagram users. And I think Facebook admitted this. There was a huge story with Notre Dame and the fire, of course, the horrible, horrible fire. But Facebook delayed its announcement until the same day that the Notre Dame fire happened or something. There was a much bigger story, and Facebook kind of put this one out there, and not a lot of people paid attention to it, but I'm glad that it caught your eye so that we could bring it up again.
Yeah, and I think Facebook, and we've talked about this on a couple shows in the past, they continue to drop the ball, as it were, and expose really customers' information, and we're the customer if we're on Facebook, unfortunately, even though they really cater toward their advertisers. In this case, they expose millions of Instagram users' passwords, and that's concerning. I'm a huge fan of Instagram. I love it. It's great. I don't even associate it personally to Facebook, but I got to remember who's behind it. It's really Facebook owns them since they purchased them. Mm-hmm. I hate Facebook. I don't trust Facebook. But probably the same thing should start to be said about Instagram. I have to be careful because they are one and the same in a sense, because who's driving it? Who's driving ad dollars? Well, it's Facebook, and that's what we have to all be concerned with. So if we're on Instagram, we share information, guess what? It's going to be on Facebook, and that information is shared and used and sold to the highest bidder, usually advertisers targeting us. Basically, they really blew this, and this was really, in a sense, a password leak, I guess, that they claimed, and it caused all kinds of havoc. And again, it just adds doubt if you're a user of Instagram or Facebook. Are they keeping our information protected and keeping it safe? I think the answer is a resounding no. They're not doing enough.
So there's a theme that kind of flows through one story to another. You mentioned, I think it was bodybuilding.com with that hack earlier in the show. They had a third party. They mentioned they were hiring contractors or something along those lines, and that happened back in July 2018. Investigators discovered that a breach was caused by a phishing email from an independent security firm. Yeah, so. Same thing happened with Facebook a little while ago, where they had hundreds of millions of user account passwords stored in plain text that they were giving to third-party app developers. And, just off the top of my head, think like Sony, they sent their movie off to a third party company in India to do some final work on the editing of one of their movies. They were compromised by a third party, when someone got into their contractor. To me, it just seems like if a company contracts a third party to outsource any part of its workflow, that greatly increases the chances that information is going to get out of your organization. But my immediate concern with that statement that I just made is that I think it's pretty industry standard. I think everyone kind of contracts out work. Not many organizations that are as large as Facebook or Sony or a lot of these other ones, not many keep every single thing in-house. Like maybe Apple, but not even Apple, because I know that they outsource their hardware in a lot of cases. It seems like, third parties, right, Scott, that whenever you bring in a third party, you greatly increase the chances of you leaking information?
Yeah, absolutely. It increases it by a certain factor. And think about it. As companies change or evolve and new management comes in, typically they're trying to keep the shareholders happy every quarter. What are they always looking to do? Cut costs, save money, outsource it. You can eliminate 1,000 jobs. We can outsource it to India or China or another third-party company and save a lot of money. That's a very effective way to affect the bottom line, and I think that's what a lot of these companies do. But as you point out, when they take data that probably was hashed and it was protected and encrypted, so on and so forth, but now they're going to give it to a third party, they have to dumb it down in a sense and to put it into plain text, and now here it is on some servers outside of your company that you were keeping protected. It opens up Pandora's box. Can you trust that third party? Are you doing audits on them? Are they keeping it encrypted and keeping it secure and so on and so forth? Obviously, in this case, the answer is no. And there was mistakes that were made in the process. But what does the parent company, in this case Facebook, what were they doing to follow this through the processes of the third party to make sure that it was secure? Probably not enough.
Probably not enough. And of course, Facebook and, like you said, Instagram, if you have a password out there, if nothing else, the takeaway from this should be, hey, if you have an Instagram account, if you have a linked Facebook account, change your credentials. This just happened a couple days ago, and it's been ongoing. So if you aren't one of the hundreds of millions that have been accessed yet, hey, it could happen in the near future. So with that being said, we had one more story that we weren't able to, well, we have like 2 or 3 minutes, Scott, so, no pressure. School's out, meet the teen hackers swapping books for bugs. And, this is something that we've seen that if there's a passion that a student wants to pursue, then it may behoove them, depending on the passion, to pursue the passion as opposed to a more formal set of education. But talk about this, and I guess this is bug bounty programs and the like. What's this article about?
Well, what I love about it is we hear about a lot of people trying to find lucrative jobs. They don't know where to go, this or that. Here's yet another example in the world of cybersecurity. You can do stuff that's a lot of fun, and you can make a lot of money at it too, and you don't necessarily need to get a formal degree. Not that I'm knocking that, but if somebody's a techie and they want to learn and they're a hard worker, they could do very well. Fulfilling these little niche positions there and getting bug bounties for finding vulnerabilities within companies, you can do very well. It could be with video games. It could be, a payment system within a company. There's all kinds of bug bounties that are out there where you could make money. Your commute is zero because you do it from your home, in your pajamas with a hoodie on, behind your computer screen. It just really takes hard work and dedication. In this particular case, This guy is a teenager, and he's made over $1 million in this bug bounty payouts. And this is done through a great company, HackerOne, that works with, these are legitimate companies that define up front what the bounty is, what will be paid, and what the criteria is met if somebody identifies to help remediate these bugs to make their software, make their companies safer, so they're not prone to hacks and attacks by cyber thieves. So it's a great way to, young ones, if you're listening out there, if you're a techie, consider that a nice career that you could grow and make a lot of money and enjoy it.
One thing that I particularly, kind of find fascinating is that there's a very real chance that this gentleman featured in this article, he probably, there's the music, he probably associates with those who would use the hacks for, more nefarious ends, and he just kind of gets to them first and, reports them to the proper places and submits them to the companies and say, hey, you have a flaw, it's definitely going to be utilized, bug bounty, please. So, hey, it's just getting in with the right communities and, doing the right thing. But Scott, hey, music in the background, I'll let you go ahead and have the last word. If people want to hear more about you, your writing, your work, where can they go?
They can go to scottschober.com, learn all about my current book, Hacked Again, or find it on Amazon, and keep looking in there for updates on cybersecurity is everybody's business.
Perfect. And everyone, a link to that in the show notes. Scott, until next month, have a great day. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you then.
Thanks again. Stay safe.
Right. Stay safe. Bye-bye. And everyone out there, thank you so much for tuning in to Computer America. We are done here. Hey, until next time, have a great day. Thank you so much. Tune in tomorrow as we have another great guest. More great shows, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. And until then, everyone, bye-bye.